Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. Alabama may have just completed the best single season in college football history. They went 13-0 with an all-SEC schedule and capped it off with a dominating victory over Ohio State in the national championship game. But the Crimson Tide have not won back-to-back championships in a decade. Can that change in 2021? So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys, here to break down the reigning national champions, the Alabama Crimson Tide, break down their schedule and their record for this upcoming season. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and also make sure to check out everything down in the description below. That includes our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com, and that also includes our new link over at Prize Picks. We are now a partner and a consultant, so make sure to go sign up over there using our code GRIDIRON. Promise you're not going to want to miss out on either of those offers. Everything is down in the description for both of those. So let's take a look at Alabama, guys. We just mentioned that they're reigning national champions, but per usual, Alabama loses tons of production from their championship team. And we'll start on the offensive side of the ball. That's where they lose the majority of their production. They lose their star quarterback in Mac Jones. They lose their star running back in Najee Harris. They lose the Heisman Trophy winner and wide receiver Devonta Smith. They lose Jaylen Waddle. They lose 3 offensive linemen, and they lose tons of assistant coaches. But what else is new in Tuscaloosa? This happens every single year. And every single year, Alabama and Nick Saban bounce back and remain atop the SEC and remain atop the country, always competing for a national championship. And that's going to be no exception this year. Bill O'Brien now steps in as the offensive coordinator. Yes, the same Bill O'Brien that was the former head coach of the Houston Texans. And he has a very, very talented quarterback in Bryce Young. Dangerous dual threat quarterback, lots of hype surrounding this quarterback, and I think he's going to do just fine filling in the shoes for Mac Jones. Everybody was afraid Jones couldn't fill in for Tua, but he did. And Bryce Young, everybody's afraid that Bryce Young can't fill in for Mac Jones, and he will. He'll do just fine. And he has a great supporting cast with him. He's got Brian Robinson at running back, who behind Najee Harris rushed for over 480 yards and 6 touchdowns. And he has a dangerous wide receiver in John Metchie III, who kind of got overshadowed by Devonta Smith, but still put up over 900 reception yards and 6 touchdowns. This team's talented. This team is loaded with talent, even though they lost so much offensively. The defense, though, guys, that's going to be the strength for Alabama this year. That, without a doubt, will be the strength. 8 starters are back. They're led by Will Anderson Jr. in the linebacking core, DJ Dale on the defensive line. And they've got a secondary led by Malachi Moore, a freshman All-American. They've got Jordan Battle back there. And let's not forget the Tennessee transfer and Henry Tuo, who transferred in just a few months ago. That's a huge boost in that linebacking core for Alabama. So yes, they lost a few key players here, but the Crimson Tide are going to be just fine. And they're going to rely on the strength of their defense, at least early on in this season. So we take a look at their schedule, guys. It once again lines up very favorably for Alabama. Obviously, the game against Miami in the season opener is a big one. The game at Texas A&M on October 9th, many believe could determine who wins the SEC West. And if you're picking a game for Alabama to lose, many have that one being it. Many have that being the lone loss for Alabama. We'll wait and see what we think on that. Let's start with Miami. Here's the thing. We've seen this story before. Alabama facing off in a neutral site season opener against a marquee opponent. Everybody's getting hyped about it, and what happens? Alabama doesn't just win that game, they dominate that game. Look at the recent history. They did it against Michigan. They've done it against Virginia Tech. They've done it against West Virginia. They've done it against Wisconsin. They've done it against USC. Alabama is 10-0 in neutral site season openers under Nick Saban. And every single one of those games has been won by at least 10 points. Alabama is 10-0 in season opener neutral site games. 6 of those 10 have come against ranked opponents. All 10 of the games have been won by at least 10 points. This game against Miami will be no exception. The Crimson Tide, everybody wants to make the narrative that De'Aaron King's going to come in here for Miami and light up this Alabama team that lost so much from last year's team, and it's just not going to happen because Nick Saban's not going to let it happen. So yes, while this could be a top 10 matchup to kick off the year, at least a top 20 matchup, Alabama will win this game. They will win it by at least 10 points. Bryce Young will thrive against this Miami defense. And I've been interested to say that Brian Robinson has a great day as well, as Miami allowed over 170 rushing yards per game last year. The Crimson Tide will win this game. Forget all these narratives you're hearing. Alabama's going to improve to 11-0 in neutral site openers under Nick Saban. They'll beat Mercer in week 2. We don't have to worry about that. They then travel to the Swamp against Florida for an SEC championship rematch. If you remember, just back in December, Alabama beat Florida 52-46 in that SEC title game. It's an epic game, an amazing game between two of the best offenses in the entire country. And like Alabama, Florida loses so much of that offensive production. They lose their star quarterback in Kyle Trask, and they lose their top 3 pass catchers in Kadarius Toney, Kyle Pitts, and Trayvon Grimes. So Emory Jones, the new quarterback down in Gainesville, is going to have to build up some quick chemistry with his new core of pass catchers if they want to have any chance of taking down the Crimson Tide on September 18th. And it's about time we get to see this matchup too, at least in the regular season. In the Swamp, cross-division game. Finally, awesome that we're going to get to see this matchup when it's not an SEC championship game. But here's the problem that I have with Florida. I do question whether or not Emory Jones can get it done. He's receiving a lot of hype. He's a dangerous dual-threat quarterback. Many believe he's a great fit for Dan Mullen's offense, and I'm not doubting that. But can he get this done against Alabama's defense? And more importantly, can Florida's defense get it done against this Alabama offense? Because Alabama's offense isn't going to fall off the face of the earth. They're not. They're going to have a dangerous running back. They're going to have a dangerous dual-threat quarterback. Their wide receivers will be just fine. So the million-dollar question is, can Florida find any success at home in stopping Alabama? And right now I'm saying no. I do think this game is relatively close, at least for a while. But at the end of the day, I don't have faith in Florida's defense, and I don't really have faith right now in week 3 in Emory Jones getting the job done. It's going to be rocking down the Swamp, but Alabama, I do think, wins this game. I do believe they beat Southern Miss, and they come out of September 4-0. What else would you expect? Obviously, the Miami and Florida games are the bigger ones there. I think the Florida game might even be tougher than the Miami game, but I still believe Alabama comes out undefeated in the first month. They then take on Ole Miss. This is an exciting game. As we all know, Alabama and Nick Saban at least, has never lost to a former assistant. Lane Kiffin is a former assistant. And last year, Ole Miss dropped 48 points on the Crimson Tide. Normally, if you can drop 48 points on Alabama, you're going to beat Alabama. That didn't happen last year because Ole Miss's defense was so bad. The Rebels lost 63-48. And I have no doubt that this game could be a shootout once again because we know what Alabama is capable of and we know what Ole Miss is capable of. A team that averaged 344.9 passing yards per game, a team that was first in the SEC and third nationally in total offense, averaging 555.5 total yards per game. This team is loaded. This team is loaded offensively. Jerrion Ealy returns at running back. Matt Corrals, especially, returns at quarterback. Lane Kiffin, the Lane train down in Oxford, is going to be thriving. But the key for Ole Miss, whether or not they're ready to take that next step forward, is the defense. A defense that was one of the worst in the country last year. They allowed 519 yards per game. The game's in Tuscaloosa. If the game was in Oxford, I'm not saying I would be picking Ole Miss, but I might be more inclined to say, hey, it's going to be really close. Ole Miss could pull off this upset. We know Ole Miss has won in Tuscaloosa before. It's possible, but I don't see it happening this year. Until I can really see Ole Miss's defense take that next step forward, see significant improvement, I can't pick them to win a game like this. Alabama defeats Lane Kiffin and the Rebels, and they go into College Station at 5-0 for a potential top 10 matchup against Texas A&M. And like we mentioned, this is the big trap game. This is the game that a lot of people out there are saying that Alabama will lose, that Nick Saban will finally fall to a former assistant, this one being Jimbo Fisher. And I will say that this Texas A&M game is probably the toughest game on Alabama's schedule. It is probably the toughest game, and I might even say the biggest game on Alabama's schedule because A&M is going to be a very good team. It is on the road in College Station, the 12th man, and they're hungry to finally take down the Crimson Tide. But I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. And if it doesn't happen this year for the Aggies, I don't know when it will. The biggest question and the problem that I have for Texas A&M right now is their offense. They've got to replace their star quarterback in Kellen Mond. They're replacing him with Haynes King. We know their offense running game is going to be just fine with Isaiah Spiller back. But are they going to be able to beat Alabama solely on the ground? They're not. And I'm not saying that Haynes King isn't going to get anything going through the air. But this is still a very young quarterback facing potentially the number one team in the country. A lot of pressure on a young QB. We know Texas A&M is going to have one of the best defenses in the country. They ranked second nationally in stopping the run, only allowed 92 yards per game last year. They are also first in the SEC in total defense, just allowing 317.3 total yards per game. This is a game between Alabama and A&M that I think is a battle of defenses, more so than it is offenses. Alabama's defense is going to be their strength early on. Same can be said for A&M, maybe all season long. But at the end of the day, which team do I think has the better offense across the board? It's Alabama. It's the Crimson Tide. We've seen them come into College Station before, hostile College Station environments before. They've gotten the job done, and I think they're going to get it done. Maybe it's narrowly, but they will beat Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies. And right there, they're going to put themselves, again, atop the SEC West standings, knowing that even if A&M wins out, they're going to need some help to try to get in above Alabama for the SEC title game. So the Crimson Tide do beat Texas A&M. I do think they beat Mississippi State. They beat them 41-0 last year. Mike Leach has options at quarterback with Will Rogers or Jack Abraham transferring in from Southern Miss. But right now, it's a matter of finding the quarterback that can actually get the job done, still trying to figure out the air raid offense can even work in the SEC, and whether or not that defense can get the job done too. Even though the game is in Starkville, I just don't see Mississippi State being able to take down Alabama. They shut them out. The air raid offense, you really shouldn't be able to shut out anybody with the air raid offense. Alabama did it last year. Their defense is just as good, if not better than it was last year. They're going to win in Starkville. And I do believe Alabama, going into their bye week, defeats Tennessee. They've won 14 straight against the Volunteers. They won 48-17 last year. And now Tennessee is just in a horrible, horrible state as a football program. New head coach in Josh Heupel. Got questions on offense, got questions on defense. Henry To'o is going to get to play against his former team, so that's exciting. But I don't want to say it like this, but there's just no way that Tennessee wins this game. They're not coming into Tuscaloosa and winning this game. It's going to take a few years for Heupel to build this program back up. And having said all that, Alabama is undefeated. They're 8-0 going into their bye week, and the month of November is extremely favorable for them. The toughest game in their final 4-game stretch comes right after the bye when they take on LSU. Well, last year they defeated the Tigers 55-17 in Death Valley. Now, I will say that I think the game's going to be a little closer this time around. Even though the game's in Tuscaloosa, LSU is going to be a much better team than they were last year. A team that was riddled by injuries, a team that got hit with some opt-outs, and a team that lost so much from the national championship team a year ago, or the year before that, 2019. Miles Brennan should be back fully healthy. Keyshawn Boutte is going to be his top wide receiver. And we know that the defense for LSU is going to be just unbelievable, especially in that secondary with Derek Stingley and Eli Ricks. So this LSU team, the one that went, 5-5 last year, going to be a lot better now. But they have struggled to win in Tuscaloosa. I know 2 years ago they did it, but that was one of the best college football teams we've ever seen, led by Joe Burrow. LSU is not going to be one of the best college football teams we've ever seen this year. Alabama wins in Tuscaloosa, but it is a closer game than it was last year. Again, 55-17. They cruise past New Mexico State. I do think they cruise past Arkansas. They defeated the Razorbacks 52-3 last year. They've won 13 straight against the Razorbacks. And while Arkansas is showing major improvement under Sam Pittman, they are still a long, long ways away from contending at the top of the SEC against the SEC elites. And that's going to bring Alabama in with an 11-0 record when they go into the Iron Bowl to take on Auburn. Now, it should be noted that Auburn plays relatively well against the Crimson Tide when they're at home. They've won 3 of the last 4 games at Auburn. So that's something to be mildly concerned about if you're Alabama. But if I'm Alabama, I'm saying, hey, we won 42-13 last year. Auburn, you're dealing with a brand new head coach in Brian Harsin. You got rid of Gus Malzahn, who, if I'm Alabama, I'm very happy about, because Gus Malzahn was one of the few people that could actually beat Alabama. Not consistently, but one of the few people that actually was able to outcoach and beat Nick Saban. Don't know why Auburn kind of went that route, but they got rid of him. Brian Harsin's in. If I'm Alabama, I'm looking at it like this. Bo Nix isn't going to beat us. Bo Nix at Auburn is not going to beat us. Bryce Young is better than him. We own the quarterback edge. You probably don't own the running back edge. Tank Bigsby is one of the best in the nation. But again, kind of like we mentioned with Texas A&M, can you beat Alabama solely on the ground, solely with your run game? You can't. So Auburn's going to have to rely on Bo Nix to get the job done with a relatively young core of wide receivers, and they're going to have to rely on their defense to somehow shut down this Alabama offense. Again, 42-13 last year. I'm not seeing a 29-point swing in the span of one season, especially with a new head coach going all through so many different changes. The game might be 42-20, 42-24, but Alabama is going to win at Auburn. They are going to win on the Plains, and they're going to finish the season undefeated yet again. Have them at 12-0. Some might say they lose to A&M. That's really, to me, the only game that I could possibly see Alabama losing on their schedule, because LSU is another big one, but it's in Tuscaloosa off of bye week. Miami is a big one. I don't have faith in the Hurricanes to pull this one off. It's at a neutral site. Florida's the other big one. It's in the swamp. I don't have faith in Emory Jones right now, and I don't have faith in their defense. A&M is the only game that I can see Alabama losing right now, and I still don't think the Aggies are there yet. So Nick Saban will be 12-0. The Crimson Tide will be going to yet another SEC championship game where they most likely will face off against Georgia. And if they win that, they once again will be in the college football playoff, looking to win their second straight national title, looking to win back-to-back titles for the first time in a decade. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. Also, make sure to check out everything down in that description below. That includes the expert picks. That includes the prize picks. Use our promo code over there, Gridiron. All the information is down there in the description, so make sure to go give that a look. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.